So hello everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. So today's webinar is about sustainable shipping, understanding industry trends, and choosing clean operators. Next webinar will be on the 26th of March at 4 p.m. Central Europe time, and it will be a Friend of the Earth webinar about sustainable irrigation in agriculture, industry trends, and Friend of the Earth certification. So a little bit of information about ourselves. Our story dates back in the early 90s with my involvement in the Dolphin Safe Tuna program. I soon realized that certifications could be a very important tool to achieve tangible conservation results. So in 2008, we launched Friend of the Sea, initially focused on certification of seafood and sustainable fisheries, from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. 10 years later, we launched the Friend of the Earth, initially certifying products from sustainable agriculture and farming, and now into sustainable fashion, sports, and many others. In 2022, we created the World Sustainability Foundation, and in 2023, we opened our first Sustainable Friends concept store in Milan. Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth, as I said, represent also conservation projects managed by our World Sustainability Foundation in over 40 countries. These are the Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth conservation programs on a global map. Some of the projects are developed and managed by WSO and the Foundation, while others have been selected and certified based on their tangible conservation achievements. Currently, over 5,000 products from more than 1,500 companies in 90 countries carry the Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth certification logos. The Friend of the Sea standard is the only standard for seafood from sustainable fisheries, having been endorsed by the national accreditation bodies, making it the only real third-party certification in seafood and omega-3 sustainability. In recent years, and here we get to the subject of the webinar, in recent years, WSO has developed and launched new certification standards, which reward with the Friend of the Sea logo those companies respecting the marine environment. Among them, a standard for certification of sustainable shipping operators, as well as cruise lines, and a standard for sustainable sports. The shipping industry is the backbone of globalization. It's how your morning coffee, your smartphone, and even the energy powering your home reach you. Did you know that 90% of everything you own likely traveled by ship? From electronics to electric vehicles. Shipping handles $14 trillion in goods annually. That's equivalent to the entire GDP of China. We're talking about almost 350 million tons of containers, a value that is increasing every year by 6%. Maersk and MSC have tied for first place in terms of TEU capacity. TEU is the unit that is used for container ships. This is no longer the case, as news outlets have recently reported that MSC has overtaken the former. You can see the other major container shipping companies are CMA, CGM, COSCO, Hapag-Lloyd, One, Evergreen, Yangming, and One High. As a term of reference, it's interesting to notice that these containers could overcome several Eiffel Towers. As you can see in the Maersk area, you see in proportion the Eiffel Tower for scale. And compared to the total volume, these vessels are able to carry and trade every year. So it's really impressive. And the capacity of these vessels has increased greatly since 1970. It has basically increased tenfold from the initial 2,500 TEU to the current 25,000 TEU. And so far we spoke only about the cargo vessels. These represented 2% in 1980 and now represent approximately 14% of the total capacity, with an estimated 55,000 ships. It is reasonable to believe that there is therefore a total of approximately 400,000 major ships carrying goods, among which almost half of them are carrying dry bulk and 28% are oil tankers, as you can see from the graph. As these vessels move from port to port across the globe, here we see the tracking of their movements, they generate an important environmental impact on the marine environment, the atmosphere, and also on land. The impacts are multiple: oil spillage, air emissions, invasive species, noise pollution, waste management at the end of their life cycle. The shipping sector seems to represent something between 1.7% to 3.5% of the total greenhouse gases emissions. Road transport represents 12 to 20%. While it is difficult to provide the definitive, reliable comparative data among the different ways of transporting goods, most studies conclude that container ships produce much less CO2 and are much more fuel efficient when compared to transporting by air, road, and rail. The industry produces also fewer exhaust gas emissions, including nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, and sulfur dioxide for every ton transported per kilometer than road or air transport. However, over the global emissions of sulfur dioxide, the shipping industry is a major contributor. As the shipping sector continues to grow, projected emissions would dramatically increase if it wasn't for recent initiatives, legislation, and technologies, which are generating important emissions reductions. Since 2011, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, has introduced a great number of regulatory actions to cut greenhouse gases emissions from shipping. Basically, the objective is to follow a pathway to achieve a 50% reduction of GHG emissions by 2050 and net zero by the end of the century. To achieve these goals of the IMO GHG strategy, companies involved in shipping worldwide have introduced measures which range from improving voyage optimization, new ship structures, change in fuel, energy management. An innovative solution has been also the world's first marine-based CO2 capture system, which could provide a new tool to curb ship emissions. These onboard systems extract CO2 from a ship's exhaust gases to reduce emissions. The captured CO2 is then compressed and carried below deck, ready to be pumped ashore, to be either sequestered below ground or used as part of the circular economy in production of chemicals or others. In the context of its effort to reduce GHG, IMO has also introduced IMO 2020, a set of measures to reduce maritime pollution. Since 2020, vessels are not allowed to use fuel with sulfur content higher than 0.5% compared to the previous average 3.5%. While this has led to a sharp reduction of sulfur dioxide in shipping, as you can see on the line graphs on the right, only 25% of the reduction has been generated by use of cleaner fuels, as you can see on the pie chart. Most ships have instead introduced scrubbers. Well, only 2% of scrubbers are closed loop, and apparently most of them release wastewater which contains sulfur, which combines with seawater to form a strong acid, as well as heavy metals and other toxic substances. It is likely that IMO will take care also of these issues, and new technologies will allow to take also this impact under control. Another emission from shipping which impacts the marine ecosystem derives from oil spills. Thanks to new technologies, IMO resolutions, and new prevention measures, the good news is that the number of tanker spills has declined a lot in the past 3 decades, as you can see on this graph by looking at the blue bars, by approximately 90%, while the industry has doubled, as you can see on the purple line. The same trend is visible in the thousands of tons when we look at the thousands of tons spilled over the years, with few exceptions. As it can be seen from this map, also noise pollution is still an issue, and it has spread to every corner of our oceans, leaving relatively quiet only areas like the Galapagos, the Baffin Sea, the Antarctic. So there's noise everywhere at different levels. The red lines show higher presence of noise from noise pollution from ships. Several technical solutions to reduce noise pollution are already available. Some of them are simpler to be implemented, such as slowing down and reroute to avoid important breeding and feeding sites, so reduce the potential impact of noise pollution. Clean and maintain propellers. Others imply more complex and expensive investments, such as wind-powered and wind-assisted vessels. Many, if not most, of marine species use sound to carry out the important day-to-day activities necessary to survive. It is the way that marine animals, from whales to fish to lobsters, communicate with one another, find food and avoid predators, reproduce, and even navigate. When ship noise overwhelms or masks these natural sounds, marine life has been observed leaving their preferred habitats or changing important behaviors like singing to mates, foraging for food, or nursing babies. Another major impact on the environment from shipping is the transportation of invasive species from ballast water. Ballast water may be taken on board by ships for stability and can contain thousands of aquatic or marine microbes, plants, and animals, which are then carried across the globe. Untreated ballast water released at the ship's destination could potentially introduce a new invasive marine species. IMO itself highlights the problem, claiming that 7,000 species are transferred in ballast water every hour of every day. Among them, these are the most common invasive species transported, such as zebra mussels, European green crabs. This is a major problem in lakes connected to the ocean, such as the Great Lakes in the USA and Canada, where several invasive species have been introduced over the years. In this case, the measures undertaken aim at requesting incoming ships to flush ballast tank with seawater when in the middle of the ocean, before entering the lakes. Other systems propose that the seawater be pumped onto ships as ballast should be pre-treated using a natural subsurface filtration process, a technology initially developed to improve seawater desalination plant performance. Two environmentally friendly filtration methods, wells or galleries, can be used to provide clean seawater, devoid of both macroscopic algae and ichthyoplankton and microscopic living marine organisms. Another growing impact, perhaps one of the major and least known of the various impact of shipping is whales ship strikes. And by the way, you should have access to a downloadable webinar material that I have uploaded to the webinar. Otherwise, you can find it on our website on the dedicated page. The number of vessels in our seas has grown fast, as we have seen in recent decades, and shipping vessels' average speed has increased to become 3 times faster than whales. Friend of the Sea has carried out an extrapolation based on available literature, and it has concluded that an average approximately 20,000 whales are killed every year by ship strikes. This dwarfs the number of whales killed by whaling itself, about 1,000, and it's likely the same number of whales killed by entanglement in fishing gears every year. It is clear this can be a major risk of extinction, at least of the most endangered whale species, which are represented only by a few individuals, few hundred individuals. Furthermore, there is a silent impact on whales migration. Whales migrate to feed and reproduce, and shipping lanes, in particular in smaller seas like the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, can make their migration much more complex in terms of energy waste and time to get to the right spot. A very clear example of this is given by this video, which shows the tracking of a blue whale in the Chilean Patagonian area, where there's a lot of vessels also moving around transporting salmon, for example. This shows, you can see the blue whale moving from one side to the other without really a migratory pattern as it should, and surely having difficulties at finding areas where it can feed, because it's continually disturbed by the vessels. There are many identified high-risk areas for ship strikes with high number of whales and high concentration of vessels, as you can see from this map and this list. The most effective way to reduce the risk of ship strikes is to ensure that ships cannot encounter whales by separating them in time and space. If ships cannot be kept away from whales, reducing their speed can reduce the risk of ship strikes. Studies have demonstrated that reducing speed to 10 knots or slower can reduce the risk of a lethal ship strike up to 50%. Several slowdown areas are in place in North America. There has been much interest in developing real-time whale detection technologies so that vessels can avoid areas where whale sightings have been made or engage in avoidance maneuvers. There is evidence that the front of the big shipping vessels represent a quiet sector in which whales do not perceive the incoming of the vessels. Acoustic deterrents, unfortunately, seem to lead whales to the surface and thus even potentially increase risk of ship strikes. Our Friend of the Sea program calls on the international maritime sector to act immediately to prevent ship-to-whale collisions. Shipping companies which would comply with the minimum set of measures will be awarded the Whale Safe certification, which will in turn help their customers and consumers recognize their efforts to protect whales and make a responsible choice. Another important impact of shipping occurs when the ships have to be disposed of. According to data released by the NGO shipbreaking platform, 674 ocean-going commercial ships and offshore units were sold to the scrap yards in 2019, where they are broken down in primitive, substandard conditions on 3 beaches in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, amounting to nearly 90% of the gross tonnage dismantled globally. So most of the vessels go there in the end. According to the latest report last year, at least 26 workers lost their lives when breaking apart the global fleet. United Arab Emirates, Greece, and the US top the list of 3 worst country dumpers in 2019. According to BAN, other well-known shipping companies that in 2019 dumped their toxic ships on Southeast Asian beaches include Costa Mare, Maersk, CMA CGM, Diamond Offshore, Ensco, MOL, MSC, NYK Line, Tidewater, and Vale. All this has to be verified. It's not necessarily a Friend of the Sea opinion, so I suggest you check their website. According to BAN, the worst corporate dumper price goes to the Taiwanese container shipping line Evergreen. Whether this data is precise or not, there is obviously a problem, and you can see that depicted in the map, and there is a need to intervene and to reduce this impact. The EU laws, in fact, now require the use of EU-approved recycling facilities. To date, to our knowledge, no facility has yet located in Southeast Asia has yet met the safety and environmental requirements for the EU approval. While shipping generates millions of jobs, seafarers are not always treated according to workers' rights. in consideration of the difficulty to verify compliance. This is why IMO, the EU, and other organizations have produced conventions and legislations to try and have those rights respected. Just like with fishing, crew mistreatment is still ongoing in certain areas and vessels. This is why it is important that companies and customers and consumers of shipping operators verify their compliance with social accountability and labor convention. Normally, a third-party certification are able to verify just that. And talking about certification, as the interest in sustainable shipping is growing, so is the number of related initiatives and certifications. The Clean Shipping Index, a tool for cargo owners to assess with a score and a label the environmental performance of vessels, in particular on emissions, water, and waste management. The Green Marine, it's a North America certification program open to global participants, addressing 7 environmental indicators, including also noise, recycling, and community impacts. Right Ship, rating vessels based on CO2 emissions and design efficiency. ISO 14001 for environmental management system certification, widely adopted by shipping companies. Bureau Veritas Eco, a class notation for ships meeting strict environmental criteria related to energy efficiency, emissions, and environmental compliance. DNV GL Eco, a class similar to the one of BV. Blauer Angel, environmentally friendly ship operations, a German eco-label certifying ships with superior environmental performance. Poseidon Principles, a framework for financial institutions to assess shipping portfolios' climate impact. IMO Energy Efficient Existing Ship Index, a regulatory requirement to assess CO2 reduction metrics under IMO regulations. And finally, Sustainable Shipping Initiative, a coalition, this is not a certification, promoting best practices, including emissions, social responsibility, and circularity. Our World Sustainability Organization has developed a sustainable shipping and cruise line standard as part of the Friend of the Sea program. The aim is to propose a comprehensive certification covering all mentioned potential impacts of shipping, including shipping operators' engagement to avoid shipping products from endangered species. In order to avoid double auditing, some of the already existing certifications, initiatives, and protocols are considered as fully or partially equivalent to the Friend of the Sea standards requirements. 61, Friend of the Sea sustainable shipping standards requirements comprise pollution prevention, thus including the various forms of the emissions and fuel efficiency requirements, waste management, including end-of-life requirements, full compliance with IMO, no use of a flag of convenience, social accountability, no trade in endangered species, compliance with whale-safe requirements. Our dedicated page provides all details in regard, as well as the standards, requirements, and application form. Information is also provided in terms of the costs for certification and audit. Note that the certification is also open to fishing vessels. In fact, in the seafood arena, companies are becoming more interested in not only sourcing or fishing in a sustainable way, but also shipping the products via Friend of the Sea certified operators. Another related initiative carried out by our organization as part of the Friend of the Sea program is the Whale Safe Certification and Award. In 2022, we carried out an assessment and ranking of cruise and shipping lines according to their whale safe practices. While several lines were found totally uncompliant, some obtained the award as best performers. Hapag-Lloyd among the shipping lines, and MSC Cruises for the cruise lines. Finally, Friend of the Sea has also developed standard for sustainable ports. The details of the requirements are available on the dedicated page. So you might wonder, how does this affect me? If you are a consumer, studies have confirmed that 50 to 75% of you prefer brands with sustainable shipping, cloth brands, food brands. If you are a business, some retailers are demanding zero emissions logistics by 2040. The message is clear. Sustainability sells and makes sense. Certifications like Friend of the Sea aren't just badges. They are tickets to staying competitive and to provide a third-party verified message to consumers. To wrap up, the shipping industry is transforming. Regulations are tightening, consumers are demanding transparency, and innovators are proving that green shipping works. The future belongs to companies that act now, not just to comply, but to lead. Whether you are a logistic manager, a retailer, or a concerned citizen, your choices matter. Ask for certifications. Support green fleets. Together, we can steer shipping toward the sustainable future. Thank you. And now I will try and get back to stop the sharing. And I will start with the polls, which are normally quite appreciated. It's a moment to interact. So the first poll, I'm opening it up now, and I will show later the results to everybody so that you don't get influenced by each other. And the question is, which of the following environmental impacts of shipping is the most urgent to be solved, the most relevant, the most important? Air emissions, water emissions, therefore including also oil spills, invasive species from ballast water, whales, ship strikes, ships scrap yards, and all the problems related, noise pollution, or others. And while you keep on answering on this, I will also start the second poll. And here you can actually write, do you think an international sustainable shipping certification is already well established? In other words, do you know, have you heard of an already well established international sustainable shipping certification? If no, you can reply no. If yes, you can reply yes, and possibly name the certification that you know. This is very important for us to understand at least the perception of the people and the participants. Thank you. And well, the last is the usual rating of the webinar. So everything is anonymous, so you will not, we will not know what you voted, and nobody will know that. But I really appreciate. I hope that you enjoyed so far. It's definitely a complex subject to describe in half an hour. I hope I provided some useful information. I have attached other information in the handouts, which I suppose you can see. I can see them. It's the last button here on the left. There's the dossier on whale ship strikes. There are two links to our video and also to the application form in case you are interested to apply. And then I attach also the presentation and the text of my presentation so that you have everything at hand. Okay, so now let's see if somebody has posed some question. Maybe sometimes if nobody or few people pose question, it's also because the webinar has been comprehensive. I hope so. But anyway, we have a couple of questions. In case I already have other certification or evidence of compliance, will you consider it during the Friend of the Sea audit? Yes, the auditor will consider it. We already have some assessment of equivalence with other certifications, but our technical department is open to also evaluate other certifications that you might have. There are always some new ones, or other confirmation of compliance with given protocols, such as the IMO, etc. And that will definitely facilitate the audit, will shorten the audit time, hopefully, and also lower the audit cost. Can our vessels apply for Friend of the Sea sustainable shipping certification? Okay, I think you mean you have fishing vessels. So basically, yes, as I said, the certification is open to fishing vessels. We have actually over 3,000 vessels which are approved Friend of the Sea, in the process of approving the products of certifying the products as Friend of the Sea. And it would be very interesting to see the fishing industry proposing their vessels for certification, because these vessels also do shipping. They transport the product that has the fish, the seafood that has been caught for many kilometers. They have a potential impact, and there are differences between different fleets. There are some which, let's say, are more modern and updated, and so these aspects are relevant if you want to be Friend of the Sea for your seafood harvesting technique, whether it's the different fishing methods. You might also be interested to have somebody verify that also your vessels, your fishing vessels, are operating in a responsible way. We have another question. Thank you very much for the webinar. Thank you. It is extremely important for the sustainability of the ocean. How do you see the reception of these initiatives in developing countries like Africa or Latin America? Well, let's say a good part of the fleets that have been certified Friend of the Sea, not all of them, but a good part, originate from this area. Some of them are managed by companies, let's say, in another hemisphere. Some of them are managed like those for Anchoveta in the local, by the local country, by Peru or by Chile. And as we have seen, there are also major shipping operators which are based in these areas. Generally speaking, I must say, if we look at the map of companies which are normally involved in our certifications, I would say that South America has, let's say, quite a density of companies that show interest and get involved in the certification, when compared to Africa, where there are, however, some areas like Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, that are normally more into these matters and more willing to stand out as a responsible operator. So there is a difference between these two areas. More active Latin America compared to, and definitely also Mexico, for example, for certain aspects of reducing the environmental impact. Brazil, Peru, Chile, these are those countries where we operate most frequently on these issues. Africa, there's still a long way to go, even though there are some more enlightened governments that are going, and companies that are going in the right direction. So I don't see any other question. I see no other question. I'll just show you the two polls to see the results. Apparently, as far as the most relevant impact, most of those voting have identified whale ship strikes as the main and most relevant impact. Other relevant ones are noise pollution, invasive species, and air emissions. And surprisingly, there seems to be less interest on water emissions and oil spills, and from the end of life impact. That's very interesting. And okay, so nobody is aware of other certifications. So that probably means, let's say, in our relatively small sample, that currently there's not really a certification that is sticking out, that is standing out compared to the others, or that is widely known. So we really hope that companies will have more and more interest also in the Friend of the Sea Sustainable Shipping certification. We are here available. Now you have all the tools, all the information. I really hope you found the webinar interesting. Spread the word, and also be there for the next webinar if it's of your interest. It's about sustainable irrigation in agriculture. It's a Friend of the Earth webinar. It's going to be on the 26th of March at 4 p.m. Central Europe time. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for participating.
Help our planet with this first step. Follow Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth across our social media. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your follow and subscription helps us spread the sustainability message to everyone. Let's build a better world together as sustainable friends.